How are
I
you?
could see you, but you couldn't see me. I'm good.
You got the jersey off.
I do have the jersey off. I only
Wow.
had to wear it for regional council, which ended earlier this afternoon.
Okay.
So,
Did you burn
yeah.
it?
No, no. Well, I may have to wear it again, but I'm making one for him, a Cougars one for Rob, so that when we win, which we will, of course, he's gonna have to wear it at the next one. So there you go.
Okay. Awesome.
We'll just keep swapping jerseys for the next few months.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Just letting you know, okay? So we've done over 60 interviews together so far.
Wow.
Relations, 1,800 minutes,
Oh my
okay?
goodness.
30 hours since the pandemic started.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's a lot of info.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being
You're
on with me.
welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's get to the questions. Questions come from journalists, myself, and people that type into Instagram stories. So let's get at it. So tell us about the patios that'll be open during the winter in Burlington this year.
So there's different categories of patios. So I'm going to speak to each of them. There's patios that we relaxed the zoning and paid for the permits that are on private property that have expanded. So for example, some of our retail plazas where they took up a couple of parking spaces or they expanded into maybe some green space that's all on private property. Those will continue throughout the winter and right up to April 15th of 2022. So we extended our temporary use bylaw. The patios that are, and there's only a couple of them and they're only downtown that were taking up roadway and sidewalk access. We asked for those to be removed last year for snow removal and other issues. And so those will be, I believe it's the end of October. So the ones that are on public property in the downtown will have to be removed for the season. And then the final sort of bucket of permit is the winter tents. And these are mostly, again, in the downtown, but not exclusively. The winter tents that are on private property. So if a restaurant already had an exterior, like a patio that was on their private area and they wanted to tent it over and put some heaters or whatever it was to extend the season last year, we were able to, through a series of mechanisms under an emergency declaration, give them permission in an expedited way to put those tents up. A lot of them are still up, and they were up like throughout the summer because there's snow. There's not snow in the summer. There's wind. There's rain. There's sun. People actually kind of liked the tent patio experience. So that one piece is we're still awaiting clarity that if the province removes all of their emergency regulations, which they may or might not do, but they're set to expire December 1st, that we're not going to be required to go out and have folks take down those winter tents. We want to make sure that those are also able to be extended to April 14th, at least to get people through this season.
Okay.
And then we'll decide what the long-term picture is. We can put in some permanent bylaws and provisions if we want to see, tents and patios, year round, basically going forward. So there's a couple of steps that, and some uncertainties. So we're actually going to get another report back in November from our staff. Council has been very clear, and I've certainly been very clear that we need to do everything we can, whether it's advocacy or creative interpretation of the regs to make sure that businesses aren't going to have to take down these tents.
Okay. Development freeze bylaw was lifted on October 15th. What does this mean? Sorry?
It was, yes.
So what does this mean for like all the projects, that are on the planning stages, like the Oval Court eight building proposal of three corners of Brant and Ghent?
So the interim control bylaw, just to back up a step, when we put it in, you can put a freeze on development in a specific area for a specific period of time to study something. So we did that 3 years ago, almost now, and we froze the Burlington GO Station lands and the downtown Burlington GO Station lands as defined by the boundaries of the urban growth center as it was at the time and the major transit station area. And then we did our work for a year. And then we brought in new policies based on the study that we had completed, put those into our plan. And then the policies, some of the policies were appealed. The ones that were appealed closest to the GO station appealed the zoning in that area. And because there were appeals just on the zoning, it extended the interim control bylaw indefinitely. And those appeals have not been dealt with yet. They're ongoing. And so what it meant was, even though we had finished our work and were prepared to lift this freeze and have the new policies come into effect and start to process applications in light of those, the freeze continued. And so it meant that even outside of the GO station area where the zoning bylaw was, we couldn't process any other applications to the point of decision. And so in conversation with the Ontario Lands Tribunal, they said, look, the only appeals are really related to the zoning that's right around the GO station. So you can lift the interim control bylaw everywhere else. All the other lands that are really not captured in that shouldn't be captured in this continued freeze on development, so that we can continue to do our work reviewing and suggesting where we need to, that a project is either good or needs review or ain't going to happen. But we need to continue to process those applications. So that's what it means. So the Branton-Ghent file is outside of that narrow zoning framework around the GO station. So that one would be, we would be able to continue processing it, put it that way. It doesn't mean they're approved. It simply means that we would continue to look at it, and ultimately staff will make a recommendation to council and council will approve it. So it really allows all of the development that's not captured in that restricted area to proceed. To proceed to the point of a decision, not we're not pre-approving any of this stuff.
It's going to be nonstop development in Burlington for the next 100 years. All right.
Well, everywhere in the Greater Golden Horseshoe is growing, right? So we have in Burlington 47 applications on the books, and the vast majority of those are multi-residential, and just those applications right now represent 19,000 plus units.
Okay. Wow.
So there's a lot of interest, and that's exactly why we put the interim control bylaw into place to study what should go where. And we discovered that downtown Burlington doesn't meet any reasonable definition of a major transit station area designation, which was being used for overdevelopment purposes. So that was a great result. We shifted that, or we're in the process of shifting that out of the downtown. And directing growth to our GO stations where there's regional express rail, where there's close highway access, and there's major roads out all around that can accommodate additional traffic if there is traffic. So, this whole area across Ontario is growing. We're not unique in that in Burlington, but we want to be sort of the masters of our own fate and make sure that we put the right amount of growth of the right scale in the right place.
Awesome. There's a new vaccination mandate where everybody, including participants, 12 and up, have to be vaccinated to watch and play sports in Halton. What are your thoughts on that?
So I completely support that. That came from our own medical officer of health in conversation with medical officers of health across Ontario. And actually this morning at Regional Council, we got a briefing about that. I did ask about that and credited our MOH for imposing that additional restriction. And she said, this was a conversation among all of the medical officers of health, and we felt it was a gap in the provincial legislation that 12-year-olds were not captured, and that we needed to step in. And she said we didn't take the decision lightly. These are always tough conversations to have, but priority number one is the health and safety of our community. And so they made that decision, as have other medical officers of health, in Peel, Toronto, and elsewhere.
Okay. Sorry, just one patio question I forgot to ask. Somebody just messaged me again. Can unvaccinated people eat at restaurant patios? I guess they can't, right?
I don't believe the regs have changed. So yes, they can. Okay. It's only for indoor dining at this point that you need to show proof of vaccinations.
Okay. So we'll just kick the unvaccinated people to the outside in the winter in -20. I like that idea. Okay. I'll move on. Oh yeah, last week you had the mayors come to Burlington.
Yeah.
Was it the big cities? No, it's not the big cities mayors. It was just a mayors meeting. Was it big cities
No,
mayor?
it was the big city mayors. So
Okay.
we have a group called the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus. We are the 29 largest municipalities in Ontario, so populations of 100 plus. And that's out of 440 municipalities. So there's a whole lot that are smaller than 100,000. But the 29 of us, we offered in Burlington. I offered to host our very first in-person meeting since the pandemic began, which was great. We had it at a brand new hotel and conference center right downtown. Everybody loved it. It was great. We were well taken care of, and it was great to see people. Not everyone could come. Obviously, some of those municipalities are much further away, and some of us are close by. But we had close to 20 of the 29 in person, and we had hybrid. So the ones that were not able to be there in person, we did patch them through on a big screen, and so they could proceed. They could be part of the proceedings. So we had a business meeting on Thursday. We had a special speaker Thursday night, and I can talk more about that. And then I arranged with the mayors, as well as some of our regional colleagues, a tour of our 3 GO stations, because we're in the process of defining all of the plans for those areas, and we want to get public input, but of course I wanted to show our fellow mayors what we're working on, and ultimately there will be a decision at regional council on how to divvy up the growth that's coming to 2051 among the 4 municipalities. And so we had some of our regional colleagues see how we're going to do our bit here in Burlington. So it was a great day. Great
That's
2
awesome.
days, actually. Yeah.
What did the choir sing, and what were the main talking points?
There were no choirs. I used to have a fairly decent singing voice as a trained opera singer, but not
Oh,
anymore.
really?
So it's just yes,
Oh, wow.
it's just
More and more about you.
well, that was a long time ago. So don't ask me to sing.
Maybe I will
But
one day.
I can torture a pretty good karaoke version of Paradise by the Dashboard Light, but we're not going to do that here
Okay.
today either.
You give me a lot of ammo here.
I certainly am. Must be the end of the day. So yeah, so we the main issue is, these areas of the GO stations. There's a couple of things. They have to be more than housing. That is priority number 1. They have to have parks and community amenities, good jobs and services. So they have to be complete neighborhoods and not just a bunch of high-rise buildings next to a train station. And so we are working very hard to make sure that we leave space for all that. The other principle is that as the major transit station area boundaries, it's about 800 meters or a 15-minute walk around the GO station. As they get closer to established neighborhoods, the scale of the development will go down. So you would have, 6 to 11 stories close to established neighborhoods and up to 30 stories closer or right next to the GO station. So that's another principle, is that we tier it down to established neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods are completely carved out. So we don't have established neighborhoods that are within the boundaries of the major transit station area or MTSA designation, because that MTSA boundary, that 800 meters, is intended for significant growth. So we want to keep our established neighborhoods out of it. And again, that's what we were talking about earlier, is that we want to be in charge of planning where growth goes, where it doesn't, what the scale of growth should be, and putting the right amount of growth in the right place. So that's what we talked about on the tour. Yes.
So, well, let's keep on the GO track here. There was something held last night. There was
It was a public meeting, virtual public meeting for the Burlington GO. Yes.
Thanks
Burlington GO. No worry. Well, I was on that call. I'm on all of them. So we have 3 different ones. 2 have already been held. So the Aldershot GO public meeting was already held. Last night was the Burlington GO.
Okay.
Next week is the Appleby GO, and then there's one early November. If you missed all 3 and you want to get all 3 at once, you can go to that one. And we're developing what's called area-specific plans for that radius around the GO stations. And we tend to, we look at them as a whole, but we divide up into sections or called precincts. So the highest growth would be close to the GO station. A different precinct further away and close to established neighborhoods would have a different planning permission. We want areas that are designated for parks and community amenities. And so each little area within the larger whole of the MTSA, that is what we're planning, and that's what so there was a preliminary plan that was introduced to the community at that meeting. It is available online, so if you go to getinvolvedburlington.ca and you look up MTSA, Area Specific Plan, you will find all three of them, and really, you know, what the different precincts are, what the height, what the vision is for each of those, and can give us your feedback. There's workbooks there as well, and you can always email, you know, your counselor, myself, or there's contact information on the website as well. So this is the draft. Sorry?
Okay. I was going to say, did you get a lot of people kind of obviously, you know, not liking the idea?
Actually, you know, it was really quite balanced. There were, I'm guessing there were folks who own property and want to develop in the area because they had questions around, you know, could we have more growth? Yeah. Some of that was anonymous. There were some names I recognized in the community, and people were really concerned about making sure, you know, have we thought through what the parking rates are? You know, how is the transportation and traffic going to be handled? Is there going to be extra transit? What are the amenities? What are the parks? Those were big questions that came up. And, you know, how that transition is going to be managed between the higher density precincts within the area specific plan and the established neighborhoods, and making sure that we protect that from a shadow and privacy and wind impact. So there's a lot of really good questions and feedback. All of that, I believe, it was recorded, so I think the recording will be posted so people can see that. There were some, you know, live polling questions that I answered. For me, I was just in the, you know, in the gallery. I wasn't part of I didn't have a speaking role, so I don't know how many people attended. I was watching along all the other residents and just listening to the input and the questions and the answers.
Nice. Sorry, was this a live thing, or was it?
It was virtual, but yeah, it was real time. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they're all virtual.
Okay.
And I think that's helpful because I haven't heard what the numbers were for last night, but the first meeting there were close to 80 residents. So that's a lot to put in one of our normal meeting rooms and make sure everyone's socially distanced and all that. So I think the online meetings has allowed us to have more public input than we might normally have had. It's interesting.
Sure. Right. The official Burlington population is 165,000. Obviously, we're seeing.
Oh no, you've lost a few tens of. We're closer to 200. Yeah, well, I don't know where 165 comes from.
I'm gonna give crap to the journalist that gave me that question.
Okay, so 200.
Okay.
200.
200,000. Now, I know he's watching right now too. So, but I guess in 10, 20 years, what do you expect the population of Burlington to be? I know it's 1.5 by, I think you said 2050, right?
1.1 million by 2051. Throughout Halton. We're at about 600,000 Halton region wide right now. Okay. So we need to divvy up 400. So if you just did a straight, you know, divide by 4, because there's Halton Hills, Milton, Burlington, and obviously Oakville, it would be 100K each, which we're not going to do because Halton Hills can't accommodate that. And so it's really going to fall to, they will take some, everyone will take some. So it'll really be between Milton, Burlington, and Oakville to determine the balance. And just, you know, people have said, well, how can you accommodate this? And if you look at the boundaries of the major transit station area, it's a defined area within 800 meters of a GO station, and there's 3 of them in Burlington, and we're required under provincial legislation within those boundaries to achieve a population and jobs density of 200 people or jobs per hectare. So it's pretty easy to just kind of do the math count up the hectares, count up the times 200, and then you can figure out roughly how many people you're required. You can go beyond it, but you can figure out exactly how many people you must accommodate at each of those three. So we've done some rough calculations when we first started the whole planning for these GO stations really started in 2017. So back then and in 2018, when some initial plans were put forward, we predicted between 20 and 30,000 people could be accommodated at each of the GO stations. So that gives you kind of an order of magnitude of what's possible. We haven't done that refined work as part of our new plan, and there have been some changes since the 2018 plan. So that's still a work in progress. But just to give you an idea of what that means, you know, all of Ward 1 is about 30,000 people. So wow. It's like putting a whole brand new neighborhood, community, or community of communities right around the GO station. And we're doing that 3 times.
Wow.
And there's other growth areas in the city as well. So we don't have to take all of our growth at those 3 GO stations. There's what we call secondary growth nodes. So some of our aging retail plazas, we know those will eventually redevelop over time. There's already some applications for either applications or approved proposals on some of our retail plazas in the city. There's also another primary growth node up at Appleby and Upper Middle. It's we're expecting some more density there. So there's a couple of pockets like that throughout the city where we can spread it around a little bit, but the whole idea is we protect green space, we protect parks, and we protect established neighborhoods. And we're also protecting employment lands. So there's real pressure on us to turn all of our industrial, some of it is vacant land on the South Service, North Service, Harvester, Mainway, those areas, into housing, because that's what's, you know, most profitable and quickest to build and get your money out. And so there's always pressure for employment lands conversions, as we call them, and so we resist that. We've selectively converted some lands where, you know, there hasn't been industry for ages, and it's really close to established residential. So with all of that added together, we have space within our built boundary, because we're not expanding our boundary. We're not going into the rural area. We're not going to touch our green belt and our farmland. So we have space to accommodate, you know, a fairly significant amount of new growth and protect all of that stuff.
Awesome. I have to talk about COVID. So,
of course.
I know Toronto today came out with kind of a rough plan of what they're going to do when, I guess, the Pfizer 5 to 11-year-old vaccines will be, you know, approved by Health Canada. Does Halton Health have a plan in place, or kind of a rough plan?
Halton Region does, yes. We got the update, and they are looking at every model that makes sense, and recognizing that some younger kids don't want to necessarily be in the giant clinics that have worked well for us in the past. So looking at ensuring targeted and dispersed ability for people to get those vaccinations. So yep, they have a plan, and we'll be ready for that.
Awesome. And any info on the COVID booster shots?
Nothing yet.
No?
Yeah, no word on what that's going to look like.
Okay.
I mean, other than what we've already heard, that for the 3rd shot for immunocompromised in certain specialized communities within population groups within Ontario, but beyond that, no. So
Okay.
I don't know if I'll need one or you'll need one, but we'll see.
Okay. Talk about Digital Main Street as the grants open up. Talk about that.
More money, and this is really to help. These are grants that help us, help our chamber, help you to transition your business to an online format. And what we've seen is the digital world has become absolutely essential to the survival of those businesses that have been able to weather the pandemic storm. And it's interesting, and it goes both ways. Those that were bricks and mortar that had to pivot immediately to online delivery or online offerings, ordering platforms and all of that. But also we saw some online businesses who had built up such a following that they opened up a bricks and mortar. We've talked about some of those women-led businesses,
Yep.
which is awesome. So yeah, that digital, and it is still occasionally when I'm, online shopping, because it's hard for me to get out and do it in person, and it actually saves a load of time if I can do it online. I'm still surprised at how many businesses, don't seem to have a good e-commerce platform. So there's help available for you, and there's grant money on the table. So take advantage of it.
Awesome. And I talked to Mayor Bonnie Crombie from Mississauga and Patrick Brown from Brampton, and they're doing a New Year's thing, I just found out. And I know you guys, Burlington doesn't usually do it, but because, you guys, nobody's done anything for so long and you guys are able to now, is this something that you might want to do?
Well, the reason Burlington doesn't do or hasn't done a New Year's in a very long time, we used to do it in my time even of living here. There used to be fireworks over at Central Arena and a program. It usually wrapped, well before midnight. Actually, it was, it was family oriented. And as soon as it kind of got dark at 5 or 6, there was some program, and we all went home by 10 o'clock or earlier. But what we discovered is that people preferred, over time, the numbers really went down, and people preferred either going out to a restaurant or a bar or their friend's house, and doing New Year's Eve that way. So we felt the investment didn't match the response that we were getting, and people were choosing to do different things for New Year's. So, and I don't see that changing actually with COVID. In fact, I think people have even more of a pent-up energy and desire to be with their friends that they may not have seen for a while, and to be with family, and to have that kind of a, close-knit social gathering celebration. We do have events throughout the month of December. Most of those are sponsored privately or by our business association. So there's lots of other activities leading up to the new year that are, and those ones are really well attended. Those grow. So the timing seems to work for us to offer those sort of December focused events versus a New Year's or New Year's Eve event. And there's a new one coming, which is awesome. It's downtown Burlington, and it's a holiday market. So the Downtown Business Association, Sound of Music, and other interested folks are contributing to make that a reality. Council recently approved it, so it's going to be great. And there's, it's that kind of thing that people are really looking forward to. So
is that breaking?
So that's what. Sorry.
Is that breaking? Is that new info?
That's brand new. Well, it's breaking as of about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Okay.
Council. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't come up before, but we weren't talking about Christmas then. Maybe there's so many things that we decide on. I think that we count how many hours of meetings and how many recommendations in our meetings, in our council meeting, and I think it was 31 hours of committee meetings leading up to council yesterday, and something like 16 or 17 recommendations that we approved. So we can't talk about all of them on this show every time, but yes, holiday market is good. It works for us.
Well, we've chatted for 30 hours. I can't imagine how many hours you are in council. So
a lot.
Thousands. Anything else you want to bring up? It's 30 minutes.
Nope, that's good. I got to run to a chamber event right now. So we talk about Small Business Week and celebrating local and small business. So a shout out to all our awesome small businesses in Burlington. Awesome.
Do you work like 16 hours a day? Is that how it is?
27 or 28 hours a day.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Colin.
Bye.
Take care.